r/AskReddit. Doctors and nurses of Reddit, have you ever witnessed a couple have a child that was obviously not the father's? If so, what happened? Worked in the Army hospital on featuring Lewis. A woman came in for belly pain and we found out and told her she was 10 weeks pregnant. The husband at the bedside started laughing, grabbed his coat and left the room, explaining to us that he had been in Afghanistan until 3 weeks prior. He looked back at her and just said, "Well, that's that Brittany." I always liked how classily he left her while she just silently stared off into space. When my son was born, they took my blood and his for a paternity test. My wife flipped. The nurse explained that if my son came back not mine, they would have to ship her off to a local civilian hospital per whatever regulation they had to follow. Army hospital. She still talks about it to this day. I had a vasectomy. While chatting with the doctor, he told me about another patient. This guy had 3 kids and came in for the snip because he and his wife decided they were done having children. The doc opened up his sack and found nothing to snip. This guy was born without the ability to have any children. The poor doctor had to explain to him what happened. Imagine finding that out that way. This is hardcore. This is going to give me nightmares. One of my favorite cousins just did 23andMe with her dad, and discovered that they were not biologically related at all. This is especially horrible because my aunt, her mother, is one of the most ridiculously zealous and judgmental people I have ever met. She screams at the baby cousins when they don't behave perfectly. She literally threw a pocket Bible at a woman in a grocery store after the woman was on the phone and said, "shit," or something. And she likes to send me unsolicited long letters about God's plan for my life. Surprisingly, her husband is the most fun and laid-back person I've ever met. He did not deserve this or her. The guilt is real. I have an aunt who I suspect cheated on my uncle and had a daughter who looks nothing like him. Anytime this woman and I are in the same room, from the time I was 14 or so, she brings up birth control. Mind you, I was very awkward in not having ex in high school. And now I'm 28 with a husband and 2-year-old and she still brings up birth control and God in the same sentence. I've always speculated it's her guilt over something. Oh man, I'm so late to this thread. I used to work in the newborn nursery at a hospital. We got the babies right from delivery, cleaned them up, footprinted them, checked vitals, etc. Dads usually came in with the newborns. This dad comes in with this baby. Dad is white, mom is white, baby is very obviously not white. The dad was very quiet standing next to this baby, watching us clean it up. He says quietly, "I don't think this is my baby." You could tell he was absolutely devastated. We advised him not to sign the birth certificate until he was sure. Not sure what happened after we sent the baby back out to mom, but I felt awful for the guy. I can feel his sadness through the text. Right? Like he just muttered it to himself accidentally loud enough to be heard. Hopefully he didn't sign the birth certificate. I was blood typing a newborn once. Mom was an O+, baby was a B+, which is more or less not possible. I immediately panicked because Jesus God, they mixed up the babies. Someone has the wrong baby. We're gonna get sued. They're gonna have to genetic test the entire nursery. What if they subpoena me for being the idiot who discovered the problem? I don't have insurance. What if they sue me? After repeating the test 3 times, I called the floor and told them that they'd either drawn the wrong baby's blood, or they'd switched babies because mom couldn't be the baby's mother. Lol, no. It was a donor egg. The redraw matched fine. Everyone was where they were supposed to be. Oh God, my heart, though. You'd think they might mention something important like that. Due in 5 days. Never have cheated on my so, but now I am terrified. Thanks Reddit. Edit. I am female and the pregnant one. Obviously. My wife is an RN, hospital supervisor. Code yellow is the code over the intercom for security. Large male nurses needed. It rarely ever happens, but every now and then over the speakers you hear a code yellow, labor and delivery. You know the reason. I used to work with a guy whose wife was pregnant. Near time for delivery, everyone at our place of business had a big party with gifts, money, etc. So big day comes, water breaks. They get in car to go to hospital. She breaks the news on the way there. It's not his, the kid is another race, and if he could just drop her off at the hospital and then leave, that would be great. He took a few days off work, found a new apartment, moved out, filed divorce, etc. He called into work and told someone what happened. News spread pretty fast. All congratulations cards, etc. were cleaned up and thrown away. Everyone was very sensitive to his pain. Except, somehow, I don't know how, I did not get the news. So on his first day back, I walked into the office he shared with 6 to 7 other guys and said, Hey, Daddy-o, how's fatherhood so far? Getting any sleep? Got some pictures? Let's see the little tyke. He slowly lifted his head to look at me with a painful look. The room was dead silent. One of his workmates stood up, grabbed my arm and walked me out of the room. Shushing me. What happened? I asked. Did it die? What's the problem? When he told me I about died myself. I still feel bad for the dude and it's been 30 years. My grandmother was a nurse. Once she was assisting with delivering a baby and the ostensible father commented that the child looked good for a premature baby. Without thinking, my grandmother told the truth. That baby is not premature, so I guess I know where I get my social obliviousness from. Had a lesbian couple come in. One of them was pregnant, neither knew. Judging from all the screaming, this information was poorly received. Sounds about like my life. Found out in our first divorce hearing that she was pregnant. The judge wouldn't grant the divorce since her child was conceived during our marriage. Judge even went as far as making me wait 9 months till the baby was born and take a DNA test to prove the child wasn't mine. Even though I'm a woman. Edit. I feel like I should edit this post with the entire story. After almost 3 years of marriage to my wife, I caught her cheating on me with the current father to her child, late December 2016. By the first of the year we both decided to work on our marriage and try to put everything behind us. The guy she cheated on me with was the fiancé of one of my best friends. Well, by the end of January 2017, she was still keeping her relationship with him going, so I left her and moved completely out of our house the night that I found out. I filed for divorce later that week, and around the beginning of March was our first divorce hearing. In court, the judge asked if any children we born into the marriage. We both said no. He then asked if any children were conceived in the marriage. I said no, and she agreed there had been. He then told us he could not grant the divorce since a child had been conceived and paternity had not yet been established. The entire 9 months that she carried that child, she still continued to tell me how much she missed me, yada yada yada. Even went as far as telling me the main reason I was with him was so we could have our own child together. Believe me, I wasn't idiotic enough to fall for her tricks. After 2 more court appearances and a paternity test, our divorce was granted at the beginning of this month. It was a long journey, and boy am I glad it is over. I really hate to laugh at that, but the last part killed me. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Nurse here. Once had a couple come in, just them. The father was black and the mother was white. The father was so involved, so ecstatic about him becoming a father for the second time with this woman. Nothing really seemed off until she started pushing. The baby girl came out completely white, blonde hair and blue eyes. Usually black babies come out a little pale, but this was just straight out white. We had to escort the father out for fear of him becoming violent, but he just sat outside the room, on the ground with his face in his hands. That was one of the saddest moments I think I've ever seen with a father, besides stillbirth. Odd thing after though, the mom didn't want the baby and wanted nothing to do with the father, probably out of guilt. So she left the responsibility of this baby and their other 2-year-old boy to this man who didn't even question taking on this child. I'm a nurse, but this didn't happen to me. Friend of mine got pregnant in high school. She claimed it was our local doctor's son's kid, so he agreed to deliver his grandchild for free. Child delivered, and it was obviously half African American. Doctor's son and girl were both white. I think he still delivered it for free as he was relieved his 14-year-old son wasn't a dad. Edit. Forgot an apostrophe. The doctor didn't impregnate a teenager. It was supposedly his son's kid. It wasn't. I was doing epidurals in residency. This Caucasian couple was a more rural part of the country, and they don't look or sound particularly educated. Anyhow, wife is particularly antsy, asking when she can go home, even though the baby isn't out yet. Husband looks bored and uninterested, like he's been there a whole bunch of times. I usually don't stay in the rooms during delivery, but this one I just happened to be nearby to give more in the epidural because of a tear immediately after delivery. Anyhow, when I get to the room, the wife is holding her eyes shut and doesn't want to see the baby. I look at the baby and he's obviously black. Now the husband is paying attention, and he sees what I do. He keeps repeating, "When dat baby gonna pink up?" louder and louder. The OB tries to diffuse things by reminding everyone that this moment is critical and suggests the baby should be taken to the resuscitation area in the NICU and that the father should step out while the OB repaired the laceration. We called the social worker and security, and I was called elsewhere, so I don't know what happened afterwards, so I can't imagine it was good. I worked as a lab tech before I became a nurse. We had a set of twins in the NICU that were super early, and the mom was still in the OR getting sewed up from the caesarean. I was drawing baby B's blood when mom was wheeled over to baby A's isolette. She was crying and said, "Oh, thank God you're not black." I have been so worried the last 7 months. So newborn babies, especially when they're born early, are very pink, almost red. So even if a baby was part black, their skin isn't necessarily dark yet. But looking at these babies, it was obvious they were going to be black. The shape of the face, the texture of the hair, and baby B that I was working on had an intense Mongolian spot. A few weeks later, my NICU nurse friend told me that the babies were now on a no info status, meaning security alert, can't give anyone information about them, can't refer to them by name, etc. She said there was a huge fight because the mom's husband, white guy, obviously noticed that the babies were half black and that mom had cheated on him and got pregnant. The real dad, black guy, came in and didn't realize the mom was even married. Those poor babies. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.